My weight is ruining my life. And I feel like I'm drowning in my fat. It suffocates me. And I'm very miserable. I'm not able to fit in the shower anymore, so I have to take a bed bath.
On My 600-Pound Life, we've seen unforgettable stories, but none sparked as much outrage and disbelief as Schenee Murry-Hawkins.
It just makes me feel like I have no hope because I feel trapped in this body and I can't really believe I got this way. I never thought my life could end up like this.
At nearly 700 pounds, she was trapped in her bed, drowning in her own body, yet quick to lash out at anyone who tried to help. From blaming water weight for massive gains to insisting that only God, not medicine, could save her, Chenee's journey became one of the most chaotic in the show's history. Alongside her enabling husband Freddy, she clashed with Dr.
I don't mind helping my wife at all. Like, I do it with love, but what breaks my heart about her is just the struggles I have to see.
Now in scenes that left audiences stunned, angry, and speechless. This isn't just about weight, it's about denial, trauma, and a shocking collapse that continued long after the cameras stopped rolling. Trauma, addiction, and the road to 600 pounds. When we first meet Schenee Murry-Hawkins, her life is already consumed by her weight. At nearly 700 pounds, she is completely bedbound and unable to perform even the simplest tasks without help. Her legs are swollen with painful lymphedema, making it feel as if she is dragging bricks whenever she tries to move. Showers are impossible, leaving her dependent on bed baths that her husband Freddy has to give her. Freddy shoulders every responsibility, washing her, feeding her, helping her in and out of bed. Yet Schenee often minimizes his efforts, even bragging about collecting disability checks and joking that she gets paid to sit on her ass. It is a shocking mix of misery and denial, where the reality of her suffering collides with an almost defiant refusal to acknowledge it. Chenee's life wasn't always this way. Up until the age of 5, she was a healthy child with a normal weight. But that year, she suffered a trauma that would define her future. While visiting her uncle's house, Schenee was molested by her cousin. At such a young age, she had no understanding of what was happening, only the pain, confusion, and fear that followed. Her mother discovered the truth when Schenee struggled to use the bathroom and needed to be taken to a doctor. That horrific experience became the catalyst for Chenee's dependence on food, which she quickly discovered as a way to numb emotions she didn't know how to process. By the time she was 7, Schenee weighed over 130 pounds. School became a daily battlefield. Classmates bullied her relentlessly, but what made it worse was that even her teachers joined in the cruelty. She recalls one devastating moment when a teacher threw away her lunch in front of the entire class, telling her she didn't need it because she was too fat. Humiliated and broken, Schenee turned to food more than ever, sneaking snacks and hiding the evidence in her room. Her mother would often find bones under the bed or wrappers stuffed into the couch. By 11, Schenee was already 160 pounds, and by 16, she had surpassed 200. Health problems soon followed. As a teenager, Schenee contracted a flesh-eating bacterial infection in her legs that required emergency surgery. She spent nearly a year on bed rest, unable to move, and her weight ballooned past 300 pounds. Not long after, she was diagnosed with cellulitis, another serious skin infection that once again left her bedridden. With each health crisis, the cycle repeated itself. Immobility led to more eating, which in turn led to even more weight gain. By the age of 20, she weighed over 400 pounds. But the most devastating event came at age 23, when Schenee was raped by her cousin's boyfriend's cousin. She described the attack as being trapped by a monster she couldn't fight off. The trauma shattered her already fragile sense of self. In her mind, staying big became a form of protection. She convinced herself that if she gained enough weight, men would leave her alone. From then on, food was not just a source of comfort, it was armor. Within a short time, her weight shot past 500 pounds. Despite her struggles, Schenee eventually met Freddy, a man who openly admitted that he preferred plus-size women. To him, Chin was exactly his type. The two quickly fell in love and were married within a year, though Chin couldn't fit into a traditional wedding dress. At first, their relationship brought Chin some stability, but heartbreak soon followed. She and Freddy suffered 2 miscarriages, leaving her devastated and feeling like she had failed her husband. Freddy longed to be a father, but Chin couldn't give him that dream. By her late 20s, she had surpassed 600 pounds, her health declining further with each year. Daily life became defined by dependency and despair. Chin often said she felt like she was drowning in fat. She could no longer bathe on her own, no longer walk without pain, and lived with a constant fear of her body breaking down further. Yet even in this state, she clung to food, unable to separate herself from the addiction that had been controlling her since childhood. By the time Chin appeared on My 600-Pound Life, she weighed 665 pounds. Her body was breaking down, her marriage was strained by her constant needs, and her mental health was locked in a cycle of denial and blame. Trauma had shaped her, food had consumed her, and now only drastic intervention could possibly save her life. But as the journey ahead would reveal, saving Chin was going to be far more difficult than anyone could have imagined. Excuses and the battle with Dr. Now the move to Houston was supposed to mark a turning point. For Chin, it was the beginning of her shot at a new life, a chance to finally confront the weight that was suffocating her. Freddy packed and carried every box, loaded every piece of furniture, and drove the long hours. Chin, on the other hand, sat by and complained. In her eyes, Freddy wasn't prepared, he didn't care, and like always, her mother had to step in to get things done. For viewers, it was hard to stomach. Freddy was uprooting his life to save hers, and yet all he got in return was criticism. Arriving at Dr. Now's clinic should have been a wake-up call. Instead, it exposed just how deep her denial ran. The goal was simple: lose 30 pounds before the next check-in. But the scale revealed the opposite. She had gained 30 pounds, tipping her weight to 695. Chin immediately blamed swelling and water retention, brushing off responsibility. Dr. Now wasn't buying it. He explained that to gain that much in so little time, she would need to be eating over 10,000 calories a day. This wasn't water weight, it was food, and lots of it. Still, Chin wouldn't accept it. She nodded, but her excuses rolled on. Soon after, she showed up at the hospital claiming severe stomach pain. Dr. Now saw through it instantly. It wasn't illness that had brought her there, but fear of facing another weigh-in. Tests revealed nothing serious, though they did uncover something disturbing. Chin had been taking diuretics, water pills, at 5 times the safe dosage. In her mind, they were a shortcut, a way to shed pounds without changing her habits. In reality, they were dangerous, and they hadn't worked. Her weight had climbed even higher, reaching 712 pounds. To make matters worse, Freddy was caught sneaking food into her hospital room, burgers, pizza, whatever she demanded. Staff spotted it, confronted them, and both denied it. But the evidence was clear. Dr. Now, furious, laid it out. She was lying, Freddy was enabling, and if it didn't stop, she was out of the program. It was one of the bluntest confrontations of the season, but it still didn't break her wall of denial. Yet inside the hospital, under strict control, something remarkable happened. With no access to junk food and no Freddy slipping her treats, Chin finally lost weight. In just 1 month, she dropped 91 pounds, bringing her down to 621. The math was simple: eat less, lose weight. The science worked, the plan worked, and Chin proved to herself and everyone else that she could do it. But once she was discharged, old habits crept back in almost immediately. Living in a hotel while looking for an apartment, Chin claimed she couldn't cook healthy meals because there was no proper kitchen. Therapy appointments were missed, weigh-ins were skipped, and fast food became a near-daily occurrence again. Excuses piled up as quickly as the pounds. Then came the infamous phone call. Pressed on her lack of progress, Chin shifted tactics. She told Doctor, now that her fate wasn't in his hands but in God's. If God wants me to have this surgery, he will. And if he doesn't, I won't. It's in his timing. It was a stunning statement, one that left Doctor, now visibly frustrated. His reply was as sharp as ever. Faith didn't erase the consequences of behavior. Jumping off a building and expecting God to catch you wasn't how the world worked. But Chin doubled down. In her mind, belief was an excuse strong enough to justify inaction. Freddy, standing beside her, backed her up without hesitation. He even praised her as very knowledge, suggesting Doctor now simply wasn't used to her intelligence. For viewers, it was almost surreal. Here was a surgeon with decades of experience pleading with a patient to save her own life and being brushed off as though he didn't understand what was really happening. Reddit threads and YouTube comments exploded with disbelief. The call became one of the most talked about moments in the show's history, replayed and dissected as an example of just how far denial can go. Dr. Now gave her one last chance. Attend therapy, follow the diet, lose 30 pounds. It was the final ultimatum, a lifeline extended despite every warning sign that she wasn't willing to change. For Chin, this was the crossroads. She had proven she could lose weight in a controlled setting, but outside of it, she clung to excuses, enablers, and denial. The next stage of her journey would determine whether she had the courage to face reality or whether she would throw away her last chance at survival. The collapse and life after. Dr. Now's ultimatum was crystal clear. Lose 30 pounds, attend therapy, and prove that she was ready to fight for her life. It was Chin's final chance, the last rope thrown to her before she would be removed from the program altogether. But instead of meeting the challenge, she chose once again to lean on excuses and denial. During therapy, Chin told her counselor that Doctor Now had almost cursed at her. The accusation made little sense. He either did or he didn't, and everyone watching knew it was Chin who had lost her temper during their phone call. The therapist, Miss Lola, wasn't fooled. She told Chin directly that asking her doctor if he believed in God was an inappropriate personal question and that being offended by his answer was nothing more than a deflection. It wasn't about faith, she explained. It was about accountability. But accountability was something Chin had avoided at every turn. The next weigh-in was the breaking point. Instead of losing 30 pounds, Chin had gained 48, a staggering number that proved just how little effort she was putting in. Standing on the scale, she seemed nervous, scared, even hopeful. But the moment the figure appeared, all illusions shattered. She must have been eating well over 10,000 calories a day to climb that high, and the reality was undeniable. Dr. Now confronted her directly, telling her that apologies meant nothing without results. Chin tried to smooth things over, offering a half-hearted apology for their heated phone call. But Dr. Now refused to play into the manipulation. Apologize with results, he told her. I need to see action. That action never came. Chin was officially dismissed from the program. The condition for re-entry was simple: lose 30 pounds on her own and reapply. But she never did. Instead, she blocked Doctor Now's number, refused to attend further appointments, and even stopped filming with the show's producers. After months of wasted effort, the program closed her case. For Dr. Now, it was one of the most frustrating outcomes possible. A patient with every resource, every opportunity, and even proof she could lose weight in the hospital, yet still unwilling to face the truth. Most episodes of My 600-Pound Life end with a hopeful glimpse into the future, a patient walking, cooking healthier meals, or sharing a heartfelt update about their journey. But with Chin, there was nothing. She vanished from the program without a goodbye, leaving only a trail of disappointment. It wasn't until years later that viewers learned what became of her. Digging through the internet, fans discovered her YouTube channel where she uploaded bizarre videos with random captions, offering no real insight into her life. More shockingly, she had given birth to a child. The father remains uncertain, as she and Freddy had separated by that point. For many, the revelation raised even greater concerns. How could someone who had refused to take care of herself possibly care for a baby? Reddit threads filled with worried comments, some even praying that Child Protective Services would step in to ensure the baby's safety. "That little boy is in my prayers," one commenter wrote. "I hope someone makes sure he's taken care of." The tragic irony is that Chen had once dreamed of motherhood. She cried over her miscarriages, telling the cameras how much Freddy wanted to be a father. But when the chance finally came, it was outside the safe structure of Dr. Now's program, and at a time when her life was still defined by instability and denial. Today, Chen stands alongside the most notorious figures in the show's history. Patients like Penny and Steven, remembered not for their triumphs but for their excuses, outbursts, and refusal to change. She was given therapy, medical care, support, and even a second chance after being caught lying. She proved in the hospital that she could lose 91 pounds in a single month when she tried, and yet she threw it all away. In the end, Schenee Murry-Hawkins' story is not about what she couldn't do, but about what she wouldn't do. She had the power to change, but she chose denial, anger, and deflection until the program had no choice but to cut her off. The cameras may have stopped rolling, but the consequences of her choices continue to unfold, not just for herself, but now for her child. And that, perhaps, is the most tragic part of all. Schenee Murry-Hawkins' story shows how trauma, denial, and excuses can destroy every chance at redemption. Even with proof she could lose weight, she chose defiance until the program had no choice but to cut her off. What do you think of her journey? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories. Thanks for watching.